Hi, I'm Daniel, and my entire family died when I was very young. My parents were both originally from Russia, but they moved to the United States before I was even born. Little did they know that things would change drastically when I turned 3 and got sick with meningitis. The illness caused me to lose most of my hearing, to the point where doctors told my parents that I would need to live with a hearing aid for the rest of my life. By now, I have almost no memory of a time where I could hear perfectly, and living mostly deaf has just become normal for me ever since. My parents dealt with this situation amazingly, and immediately started learning sign language to be able to communicate with me. Since my parents moved to the United States from another continent, I never got to meet any of my extended family. In my early teenage years, I remember learning at a friend's family gathering that he had at least 12 sets of aunts and uncles, each with children, and it felt so foreign to me that families could get so big. When I was 4 years old, my parents told me that my mother was pregnant with another child, and I remember being super excited to become an older brother. But that happiness didn't last. Several months later, my parents came home crying and told me that my would-be sister had many health issues and that she wasn't going to survive. I remember seeing how sad this made my parents for quite some time afterward, but after a few months, they promised me I would be an older brother at some point. When I was old enough to start school, I had to go to a special institution for the deaf, which was fortunately located not too far from where we lived at the time. But at age 6, my life changed forever. I remember being called down to the principal's office and everybody staring at me as if I had done something wrong. When I arrived at the principal's office, I saw my father, and it seemed as if his whole life had been crushed. He knelt down close to me and hugged me tight before telling me that my mother had died in a car accident while driving to work that morning. I didn't believe him at first and got so angry that he would tell me such an awful joke. I'll never forget the look of pure remorse on the principal's face when she saw how I was reacting to the situation. The next few months were very difficult. My father was so depressed, and seeing him crying alone in the darkness every day made me feel hopeless. So many nights, I would crawl into his lap and cry with him, but it seemed like he never even realized I was there. The look in his eyes was that of pure desperation. His situation deteriorated so much that he would not leave his chair in the living room all day. I rarely saw him sleep as he mostly cried and watched TV. He stopped taking care of his physical health, and he stopped going shopping for food, which caused me to be hungry most days. His condition only got worse, and I didn't know what else to do but be depressed with him. I even stopped going to school because my father never made sure I was going. Just 1 year shy after my mother's death, I walked into the living room to see my father slouched over to where it looked like he was asleep. I left him alone as I went to school, and when I came home that day, I found that he was in the same position as before. I approached him to wake him up, and when I got close enough, I noticed he was pale, only to touch his skin and find out it was cold. I frantically shook him and started crying uncontrollably. I climbed on the counter to call 911, but because I'm deaf, they couldn't make out what I was saying. Eventually, an officer came to the house to find my lifeless father. The police took me away from my house, and that was the last I had ever seen of the house I grew up in. I had lost my entire family. I felt so alone, and I had absolutely nobody to go to. I was sent to an orphanage in a different town, which seemed very scary to me because of how foreign the place was. This was a unique situation for the orphanage, since nobody in the entire place was deaf. Eventually, I was put into a foster home with parents that were supposed to have known sign language already. I quickly found out that this was not the case. I think they just wanted the money you get from fostering children, as they never really took care of me aside from taking me to school and locking me in my room every night. The other foster children who lived there never even tried talking with me or inviting me to play with them because I was deaf. I lived there for 2 years before moving in with a new foster family in another state. At first, I was very opposed to the idea of changing my environment, as I hated moving away from the area I'd lived in my whole life. On top of that, I thought that all foster homes were as bad as the one I lived in originally. But this family had no other foster children and lived in a large, ranch-style house in a big open field far away from the city. It made me really happy to learn that both of my new foster parents knew sign language fluently, and from that point on, I knew that this would be the start of a beautiful and loving relationship. They gave me 7 amazing years living with them until I reached the point where I could move away to college. I now go to school that specializes in teaching deaf students, and I'm hoping to graduate soon with a degree in chemical engineering. The thing that drives me every day is working hard for my mother, father, and sister, as I know that they are looking down on me and that they are proud of my accomplishments in my life so far.